welcome back to another episode of Calm After the Storm. I am your host, Kesha Montgomery, and I'm actually going to be joined in by two of our phenomenal data evaluation specialists, both for Derecho and Team Barrel. So I'll start it off and let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hi everybody, my name is Zitlali, and I am the data specialist for Severe Storm Derecho.
And I am Destinie, and I am the data specialist for Team Barrel.
Awesome. So we've had some phenomenal episodes. This one's going to be a little bit different, but still we're going to pour in a lot of valuable information. I want to delve into some of the multifaceted health impacts following natural disasters. So with Derecho and also with Barrel, we're probably seeing some of the same things that's occurring with our survivors in Harris County, various illnesses or just things that can come up, how people are experiencing dealing with the aftermath of the storm culturally, right? So, first things first, kind of talk or walk me through and our audience through what you guys have primarily focused your role on. What are some identifying factors that you felt were very important to kind of feed back to not only the team, but also the survivors in Harris County?
Yeah, of course. So during our data, we see a lot of the type of race. So we see a lot of Asians, white, Black, African American, Hispanic, and we kind of tend to see that into consideration because a lot of people might not know also the language. Hence why TRT, Texans Recovering Together, managed to get people with that language, so we were able to have that communication with them. And for us to get that data, we can still see how many people are if there's Hispanic, how many more people we need Spanish speaking, or maybe Vietnamese, even Mandarin. But there's a lot of really nice languages that I've seen from the forums and encounters, and as well age groups. Most of the time, whenever we look at them, we try to also, TRT has different, they have young people, they have older people, and we're able to at least to have, that relationship with them, to bond with them, to know, the understanding.
I concur. I think that TRT has done a phenomenal job making sure to deploy, like Lali said, team members that speak different languages, that are, appeasing to different age groups and stuff like that, because, our data shows that, we have our elderly that, need to be taken into consideration, as well as children. And of course, you want people that, are personable when it comes to children, so that they can open up and let us know about their experiences, dealing with hurricanes or derecho, severe storms and things like that. And then getting to those special populations, where they're non-English speakers, and stuff like that. We definitely had really good interactions with those groups. I believe it was Latoya's team who did a full group counseling session for the Afghan community. And that, of course, gave us access to, I believe, almost 4,000 participants. Which was really good, because that would have been a demographic. Had we been limited in our interactions with them, we wouldn't have been able to help them and provide them with the resources that we did.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think our reach has been great. And of course you guys know firsthand because you do our data. But our reach has been great, and we have been able to service probably 85 to 90%, would you say, of Harris County.
Most definitely. I think a lot of it has been going more into downtown, southwest.
Okay.
I know we definitely have been trying to reach out as much as we can, going to communities, doing the support groups, and still trying to reach out in areas that we feel like we haven't been reached out. Because, of course, I think there's 2.83 million Houstonians, and it can be very hard to reach everybody, but definitely we've been trying, because we've been getting a couple thousands of people that have been trying to reach out for TRT.
What's the area per se that we've been experiencing or residents have been needing the most help?
In my experience with Hurricane Barrel, I see a lot in the northern areas of Houston. Northeast really being the most impacted by I would say like heat related illnesses, CO2 related illnesses that I believe we're going to touch on during this session, and home loss and things like that. So I don't know if it's the same with the severe storm, but I've definitely experienced the northern areas being
so like Northeast Harris County.
Yes.
No, I think I agree because whenever I think when severe storm derecho, I looked at the path that it actually took, and that same path that it took, that's where the most people needed help. So it was like from the downtown area all the way to the east side, where like Channelview, Galena Park areas, because it kind of went
East Harris County.
Yeah, because it went from like the Cypress area, like I think from north, and Cypress doesn't really have much damage there. Like they had like a little bit. I think they did say they had like a tornado that happened, but it didn't really like much effect. But I'm pretty sure I think our TRT team went out there still to check on to see if it had like needed resources. But definitely that path was the same path where people needed the most help in.
Wow. I know, Harris County is huge. I mean, it's ridiculously huge. You can feel like, where am I? Am I still kind of near Houston? Am I not? This is still Harris County. So we do tap into a lot of rural communities as well. Has the data kind of shown what their needs are as opposed to like the inner city and the city? Are those needs pretty aligning to be the same? Or is there a big difference in some of our smaller rural communities that are still within Harris County?
I think that the data would need to be a little bit more fine-tuned to really see the needs of those rural areas, because since the team members, they get out there. I want to say every once in a while, but when they do get out there, it's not as often as they are in the other areas. So we would need to kind of go in and really fine tune the needs of those specific areas, because that would be a smaller sample size, to kind of fine tune that data. But that doesn't go to say that they don't need more help, because they may not have the same resources as inner city or the larger populated areas. So I would definitely say, even without the data, that their needs, are definitely, they may surpass, the other areas.
Yeah, I think I can agree. Just one little different was that I think I was like more in the Huffman area. So I was out on the field, and they said that they have more landscape. So theirs was more like flooding, more flooding compared to
land.
Very low land. And they were like, no, my vehicle got flooded out. So majority was more flooding compared to like here, where it was like more wind damage. From the stories I've been told from them.
Right.
Wonderful. I mean, I love data because it really does give us a point to us like, okay, what are we seeing out in the community? What are we still being able to identify? What are the needs? We've been, derecho, we've made the anniversary for derecho. It's been a year. Beryl, hey, we have 5 weeks. Not even 5 weeks for the true anniversary was it the 7th of July or the 8th of July, I think, when the storm actually affected Harris County. So we're knocking on a year. And of course those needs tend to change from our residents, and being boots on the ground, all of our teams, both derecho and Beryl, have seen people are still needing assistance with getting their home repaired. And we're here a year later, but also in a new hurricane season, or storm season, I should say. Food insecurity. Our data has also been able to kind of pinpoint that, there's still individuals that are still struggling from repairing their food, replenishing their food from these particular storms. I know my Team East, has been working directly with Baker Ripley and going out to their food distributions, because a lot of people are still coming in droves for that assistance with food, and we're able to provide, what immediate resources that we still have available. What is the data saying about some of those topics? I know, Destiny, you mentioned CO2 and things of that nature.
Yeah, definitely on the food topic. it did show like actually like around, I think it was like 56% food was actually thrown out from the severe storm derecho. And expanding, we had Hurricane Beryl next, and it actually increased, I think about 71 or 76% more their food was thrown more away. So it extended, and whenever I was looking at some data, I did see like between the majority was between like I think $150 to $300 that their food has been thrown away. And considering like the power outage that happened, they can't really keep their food cold. I think they can only do as much as they can, like getting ice packs or trying to get their food. But it's hard, it's definitely hard. People struggling, and definitely still see some of those food insecurities still in our data.
Yeah, and I know just within TRT, we had about 14 to 15% of our participants report food insecurity. And like you said, if it's, you had the severe storm, and then a few weeks later,
here we are with the hurricane.
You're a hurricane. Of course, that just kind of, it doubles the food insecurity. And, yes, it impacts everybody equally, but, just imagine those, our low income demographic and stuff like that who, are either living on fixed incomes or, they're relying on assistance, so that $300 may be either all that they had or the only thing that they can utilize, and then, it's really a huge setback. So I believe that people, regardless, of your financial situation, please invest in getting non-perishables. When you go out and you prepare for a storm, get non-perishable food items, canned goods, things that can sustain, a week to 2 weeks time, that you can eat on. Don't go and get steaks and ribs and everything like that unless you really want to. But get stuff that worst case scenario, you have no power, get things that you can kind of just crack open, you prepare for your kids, and stuff like that. I also, because I do a lot of camping, so I have a lot of butane fueled, stoves and stuff like that. They're not propane, but they're butane fueled. So the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning, which is something I want to touch on in a second, is a lot lower. So I'll, go outside and maybe heat up a few items, maybe some beans or, something like that, and on a little butane stove, and that's it, that's all. And I'm not really putting my life at risk, doing that. Also wood fire, you can get wood if you don't want to invest in butane or, invest in propane or whatever. Wood is plentiful, especially in the state of Texas. So yeah, I think it's really important to get, camp style, our solar powered cooking appliances during hurricanes. But with that being said, you also have to be mindful of carbon monoxide poisoning. I in no way believe that there should be any cooking in the house when you're using these types of chemicals. Because just from Hurricane Beryl, within the first, I believe, 4 days, there were over 400 people who were hospitalized because of carbon monoxide exposure. And that came from generators, and that came from cooking with, with propane and stuff like that. And the thing about carbon monoxide is there's no smell. There's nothing that will alert you that you're being exposed to it. But if you start to feel dizziness, if you start to feel lightheaded or sick, or nauseous or anything else, definitely get away from that area and call 911, because 9 times out of 10 you're being exposed to carbon monoxide poisoning. And you really have to do your due diligence on the signs and symptoms, and also making sure that your house is equipped with carbon monoxide detectors, because unfortunately in the state of Texas, it's not mandatory that every house has carbon monoxide detectors. So if yours doesn't, that's something to invest in. I'm pretty sure they're a little affordable on Amazon, or maybe you go to your local hardware store and make sure, especially during hurricane season, to get a carbon monoxide detector if you're using generators or any type of chemical based cooking appliances.
And I know there are some organizations, and that probably would be more so from the team leads and their teams to kind of think about, what resources are still available to maybe assist the residents with obtaining some of these CO2 readers and things like that.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely something that we are going to be looking into as we kind of phase down and out of the community is gathering those resources for the residents of Harris County. So I'm glad you brought that up. Great point. Great point. Now, if we had someone that's tuning in today, I know you guys, this is second nature for you. You know where to go for all the data and correlations and things like that. Where could one of the residents go if they want to learn more about, CO2 and how it's affected or the signs and the symptoms? Is there a website that they could go to?
Google.
Google it up, right?
I know that's a bit of a broad, reference, but definitely, we live in a day and age where our access to information is plentiful. Whether you're talking to Chat GPT, or it's just something that you simply Google from your phone. Tons of articles, and especially if you want to just look at the impact of severe storms or Hurricane Beryl, there's tons of articles that you can read to see what people's experiences were, and to kind of see how to better prepare yourself for another severe storm or another hurricane. So with us, we had access to like federal data, so we seen it on a different scale, but that data isn't available to everyone, at least as of now. But hopefully with the metrics that Lolly and I have provided throughout our program, hopefully it will be available to the public so that they can see what we kind of encountered while everyone was out in the community.
No, yeah, definitely agree. Definitely Google is the best spot, but definitely I think there's a 211 website. They have a dashboard where they kind of shows like what people are still being affected by or during the time when the storm happened. And I believe there's another website. I totally forgot.
Google, right? Google it.
Google. But our VP Jennifer, she sent it, and it shows like what resources people were still needing. And it was like utility service, home repairs, and it shows like the whole map of Houston and like all the located areas. And I thought it was really cool. Like just literally going like data from severe storm, data from Hurricane Beryl. Usually there's always that, and there's public like a tableau with I think someone did like a public dashboard, and you're able to click on that and you're able to see everything.
I know that the reactions to the storms take toll on all of us, but what have you guys seen from a cultural perspective with your data and your findings through the data?
So for us, the 4 event reactions that I've seen that people are still dealing, definitely from the beginning of the storm, everyone was a little bit more stressed. They were frustrated, sadness, anxious, despair. But now since we're getting to the year, a lot of people are coping well, but we definitely still have people still having those reactions. And our top one so far that we've been seeing is still anxious, anxiety. They're still sad. Some still feel very numb and disconnected, especially like those who probably lost somebody during the storms. And there's still people feeling despair, hopeless, because they feel like there's still not enough resources out for them. And since a lot of these resources are
depleted now, too.
And they're closing out, and they don't know what to do as much.
What's the next step?
And to also touch on that, a large number of our participants were African American and Hispanic, and then depending on your situation and your demographic, percentage of that population may come from low income areas and things like that. So one of the main things that we seen was past trauma, right? So past trauma honestly was one of the leading metrics that I seen literally in every encounter, because yes, they have dealt with past trauma. So on top of that, to add severe storms and to add the food insecurity or home damage or anything like that, that just further adds to those anxious feelings or those feelings of despair and hopelessness, because it's like, man, when are we going to get a break?
When are we going to get a break?
When are we going to get a break? And then that's why it was important for our team to really be out there, boots on the ground, providing them with resources. Of course, everyone, but especially those special populations, providing them with the resources so that if and when something else happens, they have a sense of hope.
A toolkit.
Yes, they have a toolkit and a sense of hope. And so that's why I'm very, very proud of the work that that TRT has done, because I think hope is just the number one thing that'll fuel resilience.
No, definitely. I think it really brings like a sense of relief too. I've seen it like when I'm in the field, like whenever I was in the field, the amount of people like they were crying, they feel hopeless, and then I was like, no, it's okay, like Texans Recovering Together, we got you, we're here. I was like, we're here to help, like like let me know what's going on and let's see how we can help you. And the amount like their mood changes completely immediately. So it's like we're here.
To know that they have that support, I think that's the biggest gift that Texans Recovering Together, the CCP program, has provided the residents of Harris County, is a support system. Us being out there at the various events, the community events, and them just seeing us in our little polos and like, oh, hey, I have a question, or just to let us know, when I saw you last time, I was struggling with this, and now I'm doing great. The number worked. I got assistance. We love to hear those success stories. And now that we're phasing down and kind of phasing out of the community, our main goal right now is to empower the residents of Harris County to take everything that we've provided these last 10, 11 months and start, taking the lead on those, following up with those resources. I know I was going to say the same thing, Lolly. 211 is amazing for everything. I mean, they have a resource. You just call 211 and kind of tell them what you're needing assistance with, and they can kind of guide you in the right direction. So I encourage everyone. We are seeing the crisis counselors are still going out to food distributions to kind of still leave those resources that'll be available, but we're still seeing anxiety. And as I mentioned earlier, because there's a new storm season, and so now individuals are watching the news. Houston, we've been having 4 days of rain, or really a week of rain. So this is also starting to drudge up some of those feelings of past trauma and anxiety when it evolves around, storms and things like that. So we're trying to be mindful of that in the space that they're in right now, and give them those 5-minute, mindfulness techniques. Just kind of sit back and reset and relax in the moment. And it's something that you can do, in your car. Just put on some light jazz or whatever, or silence. Or, if you're just in a room, you can go to the restroom and just quiet your mind. And that is what we found has helped, and it's something that they can do anywhere at any moment. So very, very interesting times. I mean, like you said, the needs have changed from the beginning of our project, the CCP, as opposed to now. Some needs are still here. And so we're hoping that we can kind of have a full packet of resources that still may be needed in the community to leave that legacy with our individuals. Any other interesting data points that you two have found while working the project?
Let's see, what is something interesting? I think definitely, I think it's just more of a cultural aspect, because we definitely have seen, like, as Destiny said, like, a lot of, like, Black communities, Hispanic communities, but just really bringing out, like, different, like, the Asian groups, the Afghan groups. And I think it was really interesting seeing that and hearing, like, all, like, everybody's stories. And I'm like, wow, like, there's people on our team actually, like, able to have this type of language, and for us to actually reach out. I think that's, like, really amazing. And then whenever we do, like, our locations, because you guys give us like, zip codes to see, and I think it's really cool just to see like where everybody has been at
those areas.
So I'm like, wow, I was like, whoa, who went all the way over there? And
we have literally been boots on the ground.
TRT would light up a whole map, I'm telling you.
No, yeah, definitely. And I think just overall, just seeing like what people, are basically doing in the forum, and still nice to see like whenever you're out wearing the meetings, hearing those stories. It's like, oh, we're painting whatever that story based on the forum that we're reading. So I think that's really, really cool. And I don't know what else is really like that you've seen, Destiny.
Well, what I've seen that's really interesting about how people respond to the team members being out. And one thing that I noticed, and this is particularly with group counseling, right?
Yes.
I think that when you're having an encounter with someone and it's kind of a one-on-one, like they may be hesitant about what they speak to you about. Because they don't really know. Are you an ally? Yeah. Are you an ally? Are you really here to help?
Yeah.
So I believe early in the program, I seen, I'm like, okay, well, our group counseling sessions, public education trumped, what was the other? No, it's public education or group counseling, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm like, okay, it seems like the population responds a lot better to public education, which I believe happens when there's
like a whole group,
like a whole group or like a event, or something like that, and you're able to kind of get everything together. So they kind of have that sense of camaraderie, and togetherness with everyone else that's there, and so they're more inclined to sit and listen, because I'm surrounded by people that I trust. So if we all agree that we're going to listen to, and accept this this information, then I'm more inclined to take it, whereas maybe in a certain certain setting, they may not be as inclined. So I definitely seen an increase of public education throughout the our program, and I'm like, okay, go team. That means they took that metric and they seen like, okay, well, this is how they're responding. So this is what we're going to do. It's all about meeting people where they're at. And that was really amazing to see.
I think mine was different. I think mine was really for a team derecho. I think it was a lot of public education first, because I don't think everybody was still like safe, comfortable to
doing the one-on-one.
And now all I see is like a lot of group counseling, and even the teams themselves. They're like, oh yeah, now they're like sharing, they're talking, and so I saw mine different.
We definitely still have that group counseling, kind of like, those that still happens, but I've seen the team like utilizing a lot more of that public education, because at the end of the day, what matters is making sure you get to those people.
Absolutely.
So how by
getting the message out there, letting them know what's available. We're here. We want to support and help in any kind of way. And I can speak directly to that too, because I can tell you, Team East has been public education, probably since February. We have at least probably about 4 to 6 public education sessions a month. So what we have found is exactly to speak to your point, Destiny, that the one-on-ones, people are more hesitant to share. And it's hard to kind of create that safe space and that camaraderie and rapport in such a short amount of time, because we're immediate care. We're almost like, it is a crisis. So we're crisis care, right? And with the public education, it provides that safe space for those individuals. Like you said, there's other people in here. There's 30 people in here, or there's 40 people in here, or there's 50 people in here, and they're all taking in that same information. And what we also find is that they're more willing to even speak up and participate and share. And I can say that it has truly been a very rewarding experience with a lot of the coalition building that we've been able to do with the Houston Health Department, with the YMCAs around Harris County, and then to be able to sit and provide these workshops. I think the community has really been receptive to it.
Most
absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah, and the numbers definitely show that they have. So
Yes.
Awesome. Well, that's what we want. That's what we want. Man, this has truly been a pleasure. I mean, I know you guys get excited with numbers and metrics and data and stuff, but you know, when you come in, you two come into the meetings and it's like, here's this phenomenal presentation, and we're like, oh my goodness, because we're out here and we're doing the services and we're putting in the work and we're making the connections and having the conversations, but to actually see that in number form. You know, it's like, oh my goodness, we really have been doing phenomenal work. You know, it's like that extra pat on the back.
Yeah.
So go team, go. And to hear you guys kind of even whittle down or drill down the data even more with some of these correlating things that you're finding with the food insecurities and the home repairs and, you know, the CO2 and things like that, that allows us to be able to further, as we phase down and start developing our legacy project, you know, what other resources do we still need to kind of hone in on so that we can leave that with our community members?
Yeah, most definitely. So you know how we were talking about, like, you know, group support, so support groups, and we still, you know, how we talked about that there's still people feeling anxious and either sadness, despair, and even though majority of the people we've seen have been coping well, usually majority of that kind of helps like the team know like what kind of techniques we can do for the face down, and what the team can still help them, like, you know, empower them what they can do whenever we're gone, once the program ends. I think on top of that, like, I feel like there's still people with home repairs. I think financial losses are still there. I know like there's certain resources, like I think we said they're already depleting. Like there's not really much, but all we can do is still try. Try out and maybe reach out. Maybe they can still help. But having at least like you said, a little sense of hope, maybe we can do moving forward.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely think that just making sure that in those group settings, or even in like local, like YMCA, you know, places where your communities are maybe you'll frequent, you know, to make sure to leave those resources there. You know, like I said, 211 or you know, food banks and stuff like that. Kind of just leave that in the communities so that there's access to it, and in those group settings, making sure to pass on that information to, you know, the head of those
organizations,
groups, you know, those organizations, you know, to make sure that they can continue to do the work once we're out of the community.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely our strategy, to get with our beautiful partnerships that we built in the last year and leave that legacy with them so that they can continue to share and take the lead in the community and empower the residents to continue and identify those resources that are still needed in those groups. So a beautiful word that you mentioned earlier that I'd like to leave on that note is hope. And I think that CCP and TRT has definitely done that. We have inspired hope, that there's hope, that there's help out in the community. And I think the hardest part is navigating the resource world, right? Is understanding, where do I go for this? Where do I go for that? Is this still available? And so we have been able to do that and stand in that gap and provide the hope that our residents need. So I appreciate you ladies coming on today and chatting and sharing the fabulous data that we've had. We've definitely put in some great work here on the project. And I think it speaks for ourselves.
Before we wrap up, I did want to ask you guys, being so front-facing with the numbers and everything, what are some things that I guess stood out to you guys that, you know, over the course of the program, you're happy to have learned more about, thanks to being so front-facing with those numbers?
Oh, that's a really good question.
FA brings it, boy. I tell you, the thought-provoking questions, right?
I think it's still very interesting. Like, I already knew majority, like, low income needs the most help, right? But I didn't realize how much they actually do need the help compared to those with, like, higher income. And I think just realizing that, I think just like the overall how many languages there actually are here in Houston, like it's not just English. Like there's so many different, and like I think just for TRT to have, you know, those resources, like, you know, those people that actually able to speak those languages and actually see like, oh, we talked in this type of language in the forums. I think that's great. You know, I was like, I didn't realize that there's so much that people still are needing help in, or if their mental health has actually worsened. I was like, okay, like I know most people, I think like even for me, I was just like, oh, I gotta get this fixed, but I didn't realize how really much stressed I was
about,
and compared to like
fixed.
So many people are also out there, you know, feeling the exact same thing. I think that's very interesting for me, and hopefully, yeah.
I think one interesting thing that I was able to see from the data is really the areas that were affected. I paid a lot of attention to the ones who reported, you know, significant emotional stress, you know, or home damage and stuff like that. You know, and even though we know that storms and hurricanes, they're unpredictable, I think it's really important to see what areas have, you know, historically been impacted, so that change can occur in those areas in the future, so that, you know, even with our program, even though we're coming to an end, if we're ever deployed again, you know, for another natural disaster, we know what areas to kind of go to, because we know for a fact that these people need our help. And so yeah, and then also encouraging people in those areas, like, hey, you know, if it's home damage, or, you know, if it's flooding, which may be, you know, maybe a drainage issue, you know, like talk to your representatives in your area and let them know, like, hey, this is what we're experiencing, and then collectively to come as a group to make change in your area.
Advocate for your community.
For sure. So that is something that was really interesting, and I know that in my presentations, I provided heat maps, and I let everyone
heat maps
know.
That's what I forgot. The heat maps.
Heat maps. Yeah,
I couldn't think of the word at the time, and I was like, there's these maps.
I provided heat maps of those of areas where one, the participation was good, you know, and what was really being reported in those areas. And so yeah, like I do encourage, you know, the team, especially in the phase down, to really go to those high impacted areas, and I will provide everyone with, you know, those numbers again, to go back to those areas and further empower them to make change, so that in the future, hopefully, things will get a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Bars. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you guys kind of breaking that down, because I know I'm gonna talk a little louder now so the mic can hear me. But I know when you look at numbers, like for me, I'm really big in basketball, so I really like looking at, you know, the numbers, what they show, and just any sport really, and kind of seeing what narrative is told that isn't really being shown at the forefront. And I think it's cool when programs like this have people who are doing the data and everything like that, and they can identify and see these trends that we might not necessarily see. So I'm gonna give it back to Kesha, and then she's gonna, you know, help walk us through the end of this episode today.
Yeah, once again, thank you ladies so much. The data really does open our eyes as to, you know, the significance that we have made in the community. So I appreciate all the hard work that you two have both dedicated to this project. Of course, you know, we're all about resources, and, you know, because there's such a extreme rise in anxiety, you know, based on your findings and just what we're seeing as boots on the ground, we definitely want to make sure that everyone is aware to, you know, utilize your resources. Our partner, the Harris Center, you can call the access line at 713-970-7000. We have the crisis line 988. There's also some mobile apps, Headspace, that you could use. So if at any time you feel that, you know, you want to reach out and speak with someone, please utilize those resources. And we will still be in the community. We'll be phasing down, but we are here, and we definitely will be coming with a lot of resources. So if you see us out in the community with our polos on, please don't hesitate to approach us. Come to our tables. We have resources that you will need well after we have exited the building, per se. So once again, this is The Calm After the Storm. I thank you for tuning in. I'm Kesha Kesha Montgomery, your host, along with our phenomenal data evaluation specialist.
Zitlali Silva.
And Destinie Moore.
And our amazing producer.
Hey, I'm F.A.
Hey. And tune in. We have one more episode for you guys next month, and we'll see you then.